Okay, guys, in social studies today, we will be talking about how our past affects our present. So, how do things that happened in history or long ago shape or affect the way we live today? We're talking specifically this week about early French communities. We know we've been discussing how explorers from the European countries initially discovered what's now known as North America, and Spain were some of the first explorers to come and explore this region. And after Spain made this discovery and word got out that there's this new world over here to check out, French people started coming over as well, French explorers. So we're going to learn today about some specific French explorers. As we read through the text, I want you to pay close attention to the dates and the sequence of events, because when we're finished, you guys will be creating a timeline, or taking the important events from early French exploration and establishing communities in what's now America. You're going to be taking those events and putting them in order. Okay, so the French come to North America. In 1498, Vasco da Gama, an explorer from Portugal, found an all-water route to India. The French thought it might be faster to travel by inland waterways, so they explored rivers and streams. In 1534, Jacques Cartier landed in Newfoundland. He explored the Gulf of St. Lawrence in present-day Canada. Cartier later sailed up the St. Lawrence River. He realized that it was not the direct route to Asia that he was looking for. Rough waters made traveling west too dangerous, so he returned home. St. Louis, Missouri, is a city that was first settled by the French in 1700. Priests built a mission there. American Indians joined the priests, but the settlement did not last. Around 1760, a Frenchman named Pierre Lacaille traveled to the same place the mission had been set up in 1700. Here he set up a trading post where things such as fur could be traded for other items. Lacaille wanted to buy fur from the American Indians. He named the area St. Louis for King Louis of France. Lacaille said he wanted to set up one of the finest cities in America. He did. In time, France lost control of St. Louis. The city opened to new settlers and new businesses. However, French culture is still important in St. Louis today. Champlain builds Quebec City. In 1608, Samuel de Champlain sailed from France to present-day Canada. He built a village near an area where an American Indian group called the Huron already lived. He became friends with the people of this nation. Champlain called his village Quebec City. England and France fought over this village. They both wanted to take control of it because of its location. Quebec City was on the waterways to the St. Lawrence and the St. Charles rivers. Settlers could use the river for trade and for traveling from one place to another. In 1759, the English won the battle against the French. As a result, French rule in Canada ended. Today, French culture is still strong in Quebec City. People speak French, and they celebrate French customs and traditions. Old Quebec is a popular place to visit. It is the part of the city on top of a hill. Le Château Frontenac is in the center of Old Quebec. It was built in 1893 on a hilltop overlooking the St. Lawrence River. Standing there, you can see for miles. Exploring the Mississippi River. The French explored inland waterways instead of traveling along the coast. In 1672, a Frenchman named Louis Jolliet was put in charge of an expedition down the Mississippi River. An expedition is a trip made for a special reason. Jolliet and a priest named Father Marquette traveled from present-day Canada down the Mississippi River. They traveled into places that we know today as Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Chicago, Illinois. They learned that the Mississippi River empties into the Gulf of Mexico. Earlier in the 1600s, Robert de La Salle explored the Great Lakes, the Mississippi River region for France. In 1634, Jean Nicolet took 7 American Indians with him on a large canoe, and they went on an expedition to Lake Michigan. Nicolet also discovered what is now the state of Wisconsin. Because of these explorers and others like them, the French began to gain power and control in North America. They claimed big parts of the continent for France. French loses power in North America. Both the British and French wanted to control the northern part of North America. As a result, the French and Indian War began. It lasted from 1754 to 1736. Some American Indians fought with the French against the British. The French lost the war and lost control of much of their land to British. In 1803, France continued to lose power in North America. The United States bought the Louisiana Territory from France. A territory is an area of land owned by a country, either within or outside the country's borders. This is called the Louisiana Purchase. It stretched all the way from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains, and more than doubled the size of the United States. So, if you look down here at the map, what this is talking about here, in 1803, the original 13 colonies by this point had gained their independence from England and were establishing a new nation, the United States. Okay, so these orange states here represent what was the United States at that point. Okay, so they controlled this part. Over here we have Louisiana Purchase. Okay, this is the part of land that France still controlled, but the United States bought this from France and took control of all of this land. Okay. So now let's look at our timeline. Okay, we're going to go back in the text and look at the important dates and think about the order of events. If we think about historical events, they happen in a specific order, and we can put those events in order using a tool called a timeline. Okay, so we're going to look back in the story and figure out how we can take these events, these important events from early French communities, and put them in order like we would on a timeline. So, if we look back in our text, what was the first major event that happened in French exploration of the United States, or what's now known as North America? We saw in the text that the first thing that happened was that Cartier lands on Newfoundland. We saw that way back at the beginning of the text. Right here, Jacques Cartier landed on Newfoundland in 1534, okay? 1534. So that was one of the very first events that happened as the French began to explore and establish communities in what's now North America. So on our timeline, that would need to be the first event. And above it, we could write the year that happened, because on timelines, we have dates that help us know the order in which the events happened. 1534 is when Cartier landed on Newfoundland. Okay, the next important event was that Champlain built Quebec City. In 1608, it says Samuel de Champlain sailed from France to present-day Canada. He built a village near an area where an American Indian group called the Huron already lived. Champlain called this village Quebec City. England and France fought over this village because it was very important. The village sat really close to two waterways, the St. Lawrence and St. Charles River, and that way, if you controlled this city, you would have access to these waterways that could be used for travel and trade. So it was important to be able to control that area. So this happened in 1608, which would be the next important event on our timeline. In 1608, Champlain founded Quebec City. Okay, so as we look back in our text, we're trying to figure out which of these would happen next. The French loses the French-Indian War, or the Louisiana Purchase happen. That was talked about in this section of text where the heading says French lose power in North America. Headings can really help us out as readers locate information. So I'm looking for specific information about the French losing a war, so this would probably be a good place to look. Both the British and the French wanted to control the northern part of North America. As a result, the French and Indian War began. It lasted from 1754 to 1763. Some Indians fought with the French against the British. The French lost the war and lost control of much of their land to the British. So 1763 is when the war ended. That would be when the French lost the French and Indian War, and that would be the next important event. on our timeline. Let's see, that happened in 1763. 1763 was the French and Indian War. The French lost the war and in turn lost control of much of their land in North America. And then lastly, we saw in 1803 the Louisiana Purchase happen, which is when now the United States controlled this part of our what's now North America. And the United States bought all of this land in the green from France and took control of all that. And we call that was a very big, important event in the United States history because it more than doubled the size of the United States. And we call that important transaction the Louisiana Purchase. That happened in 1803, which kind of marks the end of France's control or power in what's now known as North America. So we've put the timeline together. You guys each now need to make one on your own. You're going to take the events from the text and put them in order, just like they happen in history. Make sure you're writing the dates above that help us understand when these events happen in history and how they happen in sequential order.